John lived a very normal life. He worked in a small office during the day and came home late in the evening. His apartment was small, old, and always messy. Clothes were on the floor, dirty dishes in the sink, dust on the shelves. He kept telling himself, "Tomorrow I will clean," but tomorrow never came. One Friday evening, John was too tired to do anything. He sat on his couch looking at the mess around him. The air smelled of old food. He sighed and opened his laptop. Without thinking too much, he searched for a cleaning service. The website looked normal. "Fast, cheap, and reliable maids," it said. John clicked it and filled the form. Name, address, time for cleaning. He didn't care who came as long as his apartment was finally clean. He pressed confirm and closed his laptop. Tomorrow morning, problem solved, John whispered to himself. He had no idea his life was about to change. The next morning, John woke to a strange sound. It was not the usual city noise, not a car or a neighbor. It was a low hum like electricity or a machine warming up. He rubbed his eyes and checked the clock. It was 9 a.m., the time the maid was supposed to arrive. Knock, knock. Someone was at the door. John opened it, expecting a woman in a uniform with cleaning tools. But the person standing there was not what he imagined. She was tall, taller than John by at least a head. Her skin was pale but shimmered faintly, almost glowing. Her eyes were large, too large for a human face, and a strange shade of silver. Her hair was long, black, but it moved as if it had its own life, shifting slowly like water. She wore plain clothes, but they looked strange too, fabric that seemed to shine under the light. John froze. For a moment, his mind refused to accept what he was seeing. The woman tilted her head and spoke in a soft, broken voice. "You, John?" John nodded slowly. "Yes, and you are?" "I am." "Cleaner," she answered. John blinked. His heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to laugh, to slam the door, to ask if this was some kind of joke. But something in her silver eyes told him it was not. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. The hum grew louder as she entered. John noticed small sparks of light moving around her hands like tiny fireflies. She looked around his messy apartment with calm interest. "Dirty," she said simply. "Yeah, that's why I called," John muttered, unsure of what else to say. She moved quickly. Without using tools, she stretched out her hand. Dust lifted from the shelves as if pulled by a magnet, floating in the air before vanishing into nothing. The dirty dishes in the sink rattled, then cleaned themselves, glowing for a second before becoming spotless. John's jaw dropped. What are you?" She looked at him, eyes unblinking. "Cleaner." Her English was simple, almost childlike. But there was something strange in the way she said the word. John backed up to his couch, trying to calm himself. His phone was on the table. Should he call someone? Police? His friends? But how could he explain this? The woman kept working, moving with smooth, silent steps. The air in the room grew warmer. Every time she touched something, the low hum returned. John tried again. "You're not from around here, are you?" She paused. For the first time, she smiled. It was small, but enough to make John's stomach twist. "No," she said softly, "not from here." His heart skipped a beat. The way she said it was clear. She was not human. Minutes passed. The apartment changed before his eyes. Floors polished, shelves shining, everything in perfect order. Yet the more she cleaned, the more John noticed something else. She was not just cleaning. She was scanning. Her silver eyes lingered on his books, his laptop, even the simple family photo on the wall. Her fingers hovered above each object for a second longer, as if she was reading more than just dust. John felt a chill crawl down his spine. He whispered to himself, "She's not here to clean. She's studying me." The silence in the room grew heavy. John tried to stand, but before he could speak, the woman turned toward him. Her silver eyes glowed brighter than before. "You hired me," she said in her broken voice. "Now, I serve." Her words were calm, but something in them felt wrong, like a promise he would regret. John's throat went dry. He realized he was no longer in control. He thought he had hired a maid, but instead, something else had entered his home. Something not human, and it had no plan of leaving soon. John sat frozen on the couch, his eyes locked on the strange maid who now moved around his apartment like she had always belonged there. She carried no tools, no sprays, no broom. Instead, her hands glowed faintly each time she touched something. Dust, stains, even broken pieces seemed to disappear at her command. John's mind raced to find an explanation, but nothing fit. This was not technology, he knew, and she was not human. The silence in the apartment was heavy, broken only by the low humming sound that followed her every movement. The sound seemed alive, vibrating in John's chest like the rhythm of a hidden machine. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "So, where are you from?" he asked carefully, as if talking to a wild animal that might bite at any moment. She turned her silver eyes toward him, and for the first time John noticed they had layers, rings within rings, shifting slowly like turning gears. Her lips moved, but she spoke slowly, as if searching for words she had just learned. "Far, very far, not your place," John swallowed hard. "Not my place," he repeated under his breath. His palms were sweaty, but a strange curiosity grew stronger inside him. He wanted to know more. Fear and fascination battled within him. She moved closer to the table where John's laptop sat. With a single wave of her hand, the screen flickered on by itself. John jumped in surprise. The maid tilted her head, silver eyes scanning the glowing screen without touching a single key. She whispered something too soft for John to understand, and the files on his computer began to open one by one. Documents, photos, even private notes. "Hey, stop that," John shouted, standing up quickly. His voice echoed through the room. The maid paused and looked at him. For a second, the glow in her eyes faded, almost like she was surprised he dared to stop her. "You hide nothing," she said simply. John felt his chest tighten.
He had never felt so exposed in his own home.
This was more than cleaning. She was studying him piece by piece, breaking the walls he had always kept private. He stepped forward, trying to sound braver than he felt. "Look, I hired you to clean. That's all. Just clean and go." She tilted her head again, hair sliding over her shoulder like dark water. A faint smile touched her lips, but it was not the smile of a servant. It was the smile of someone who knew more than they should. "I clean," she said softly. "I also learn." The word sent a chill down John's spine. He suddenly realized he was no longer dealing with a stranger, but with something much greater, something that did not see him as equal. The air in the room began to shift. The temperature rose, just a little at first, then more. John wiped his forehead as sweat formed. The maid's breathing grew heavier, though her face remained calm. A faint glow spread across her skin as if heat lived inside her. John whispered, more to himself than to her, "What are you doing?" She turned, her silver eyes brighter than ever. "It begins," she said. Before John could ask what she meant, the lights in the apartment flickered. His phone on the table buzzed without a call, as if some invisible signal passed through it. Every electronic device in the room reacted at once, TV, radio, even the microwave blinked to life for a second before going dark again. John's heart raced. "Okay, this is not normal." The maid stood in the center of the room, her hands slightly raised, her eyes burning like liquid metal. The humming sound grew louder until it felt like the walls were vibrating, and just as suddenly it stopped. Silence fell again. She looked at John and spoke slowly, clearly. "You are safe. For now." Her words were not comforting. They were a warning. John backed up against the wall, staring at her. He wanted to run, to leave, but his legs refused to move. He could not understand why, but some strange force held him in place. Not physical chains, something stronger. His fear was mixed with fascination, like standing on the edge of a cliff and staring into the endless drop below. Finally, she lowered her hands. The glow faded from her skin, and the apartment returned to its silent state. She walked to the couch and sat down slowly, as if imitating human behavior. Her movements were elegant but slightly unnatural, like a dancer following steps she had never fully learned. "Why, me?" John asked after a long silence. His voice was shaky. "Why come here? Out of all people, why my apartment?" Her silver eyes softened, but her voice stayed calm. "Because you called. You asked, and I came." John shook his head. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted someone to clean my house." She leaned closer, and for the first time John felt her presence fully. It was overwhelming, like standing next to a storm hidden inside a body. She whispered, "Sometimes you ask for one thing, but you get what you truly need." Her words echoed in his mind. What did she mean? What did he truly need? John sat there speechless as the alien maid looked at him with those glowing eyes. He felt as if his quiet, normal life had ended the moment he opened the door. Something had entered his home, and no matter what happened next, he knew things would never be the same. And in that silence, John realized one terrifying truth. He had no control anymore. John sat frozen after hearing the maid's words. "They are coming." Those 3 words refused to leave his mind. His heart pounded, but when he turned to question her, she was silent again, staring out the window like a statue. The city outside was calm. Cars moving, people walking, the normal sounds of life. But inside John's apartment, the air felt heavy, like a storm was waiting to break. He rubbed his forehead. "Who's coming?" he asked carefully, his voice trembling. The maid did not answer. Instead, she closed the curtain and turned back toward him. Her silver eyes glowed faintly, and John noticed something new. Her skin shimmered as if heat was radiating from within. The temperature in the apartment had risen, though the heater was off. A drop of sweat slid down John's neck, and he realized he wasn't imagining it. She moved to the center of the room and sat cross-legged on the floor. Her breathing grew deeper, slower, and with each breath the hum in the air returned. The sound crawled into John's bones. He wanted to tell her to stop, but he couldn't bring himself to interrupt. Something powerful was happening, and it was beyond anything he understood. Suddenly her voice broke the silence. "The cycle begins," John blinked. "What cycle?" She looked at him, her eyes sharper now. "The heat, my body. It changes. It is natural." John's stomach tightened. The way she said it made it sound dangerous. He swallowed hard. "Dangerous for me?" Her head tilted slowly like she was considering his question. "For you? Yes. If you stay too close." John took a step back instinctively. The air around her shimmered like waves rising from hot asphalt. Her skin glowed faintly red now, almost like fire lived beneath her pale surface. She closed her eyes and whispered in her broken English, "Stay away, or be marked." The word marked echoed in John's head. He didn't know what it meant, but the tone in her voice told him it wasn't good. He moved to the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water, trying to think clearly. He took a sip, but his hand shook so badly he spilled most of it. From the living room, he heard her breathing grow heavier. The sound was not human. It was deep, guttural, vibrating with power. John peeked around the corner and froze. Her body was glowing brighter now. Her hair floated slightly, moving as if underwater. The room's objects trembled. His TV rattled. Books shifted on the shelves. The glass in the window buzzed. It was like her body was a living engine. "Stop this!" John shouted, his voice sharp with fear. Her eyes snapped open, and they were no longer silver. They were burning red. For a moment, John couldn't breathe. She stared at him with an intensity that made his chest tighten, as if her gaze alone pressed down on him. She rose slowly to her feet, every movement smooth but powerful. She stepped closer, and John's instincts screamed at him to run, but his legs betrayed him. He couldn't move. "You feel it," she said softly. Her voice carried a strange echo, as if 2 voices spoke at once. "The heat touches you too." John shook his head quickly. "No, I don't want this. Just stop, please." But she didn't stop. She stood right in front of him now, close enough for him to feel the burning warmth radiating from her body. His skin prickled, and his heart hammered against his ribs. He felt both fear and something else he couldn't name, something dangerous. Suddenly, she stepped back and turned away. She pressed her glowing hands against the wall, and the hum grew louder again. The wallpaper burned slightly, leaving faint marks that looked like symbols, shapes John had never seen before. They pulsed with a dim red light before fading. "What are you doing?" John whispered. "Preparing," she answered without turning. John felt his throat go dry. "Preparing for what?" She finally looked back at him, eyes still glowing red. "For them. They follow, the heat. It tells them where I am. It makes me strong, but it makes me seen." John realized then what she meant. Her condition, this heat, was not only dangerous for him, it was like a beacon, broadcasting her location. Whoever they were, they could find her now. And if they found her, they would find him too. The thought made his stomach drop. He had hired a maid, but now he was caught in something far bigger than he could handle. He wanted to throw her out, slam the door, pretend none of this had happened. But deep inside, he knew it was too late. The room grew hotter still. John stumbled back to the couch, wiping sweat from his face. His head spun. He tried to think of a plan, but nothing made sense. Then, as if to seal his fear, the maid walked closer again. She leaned down, her burning red eyes inches from his. "You cannot run now. You are part of this." John's lips parted, but no words came. He was trapped, and she knew it. The hum grew again, vibrating through the floor, through the air, through John's chest. His lights flickered and the temperature rose another degree. The alien maid's breathing was heavy, her glow brighter than ever. John sat frozen, sweat dripping down his face, whispering to himself, "What have I let into my life?" The knocks on the door echoed through the apartment, heavy, demanding. Each strike made John's chest tighten. He stared at the alien maid, who now stood perfectly still, glowing faintly red in the dim light. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to John. "They found me," she whispered. John's blood ran cold. Who were they? His first thought was police, but the way she said it carried a weight that went far beyond law enforcement. The knocks came again, louder this time. A voice followed. "Open the door! This is official business. You are harboring someone dangerous." John's throat went dry. He wanted to shout back, to ask what this was all about, but fear gripped his tongue. The maid stepped closer and placed a glowing finger gently against his lips. "Do not speak," she murmured. Her touch was hot, almost burning, and yet John didn't pull away. He could feel the power in her body, power barely contained beneath her skin. "Who are they?" he whispered once she removed her hand. Her silver-red eyes shifted, glowing faintly in the dark room. "Hunters," she said. "From my world. They come to take me back. I escaped. I ran. I wanted to live free. But they never stopped." John's heart raced. "Hunters? You mean aliens? Like you?" She nodded slowly.
"Yes, but not like me."
"They serve the old way. They obey." I refused. Outside, the knocking turned to pounding. The door rattled in its frame. John's fear spiked. If these hunters forced their way in, he had no idea what they would do to him. He wasn't part of this. He was just a man who had hired a maid. But now he was trapped in something far bigger. "You have to hide," he whispered urgently. "They'll break in!" But the maid shook her head. "No, if they see me weak, they win. They must believe I'm gone. You must lie." John stared at her in disbelief. "Lie? To aliens?" His voice cracked. "You think they'll just walk away if I tell them nothing?" Her eyes locked on his, sharp and unblinking. "Yes, if you lie with truth in your heart. They cannot read strong minds. Can you be strong, John?" The pounding stopped. Silence filled the hallway. Then a calm voice spoke. "We know she is inside. Open the door, human. Do not make this harder." John's stomach twisted. He looked at the maid, who now crouched low behind the couch, her glowing skin dimming as if she were suppressing her energy. She nodded at him once. John's legs shook as he walked to the door. He gripped the handle, his hand slick with sweat. Slowly, he cracked it open. On the other side stood two tall men in dark suits. At first glance, they looked human, but John quickly noticed something wrong. Their eyes were too black, their movements too sharp, their faces too perfect, like masks stretched over something else. One of them leaned forward. "Human, have you seen a woman here?" "Tall, dark hair, strange." John swallowed, forcing himself to keep calm. "No," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Nobody like that here. I just live alone." The man tilted his head unnaturally far, as if studying John's soul. John fought the urge to look away. He remembered the maid's words. "Lie with truth in your heart." "I don't know who you're talking about," John added, this time with more strength. The men studied him in silence for a long moment. Then one of them stepped back. "If she comes, you will tell us, or you will not survive the next visit." John nodded quickly, pretending to agree. The men turned and walked down the hall, their movements too smooth, too silent. He closed the door slowly, his hands trembling. His knees almost gave out as he leaned against the wall, gasping for air. The maid rose from her hiding place, her glow returning faintly. She walked to John, placing a warm hand on his shoulder. "You were strong," she said softly. John shook his head, his voice shaking. "I'm not strong. I'm terrified. What do they want with you? Why are they hunting you?" Her eyes softened, though sadness lingered in them. "Because I chose freedom. My people live by rules older than your world. We are born to serve, to follow orders, to obey. I refused. I wanted to see other worlds, to live by my choice." "That is forbidden." John stared at her. "So they'll never stop until they take you back?" She nodded. "Yes, and now, you are marked too. By helping me, you are part of this." The words hit him like a stone. He hadn't asked for this. He just wanted his apartment clean. Now he was hunted by aliens from another world. John ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. This is insane. I can't handle this. What do we do now? The maid's silver-red eyes glowed brighter. We prepare together. Her voice carried both promise and danger. John felt his fear deepen, but also a strange spark inside him, a sense that he could not walk away now. Whether he liked it or not, his life had changed forever. Suddenly, the lights flickered again. The maid froze, her head turning toward the window. They are close, she whispered. Closer than before. We must move soon. John's stomach twisted again. Move to where? How could a simple human like him survive this? But before he could speak, the maid looked straight into his eyes, her voice low and heavy with meaning. If you trust me, you may live. If you doubt me, you will die. John's eyes locked on the blinking red light under his table. His stomach sank. A tracker. The hunters had not left them alone. They had marked the apartment. He turned slowly toward the maid. She already knew. Her glowing eyes fixed on the signal, her jaw tight, her breathing sharp. They found us, she whispered. The word sent a chill through John's bones. He crouched down, reaching for the small device. It was no bigger than a coin, flashing with a steady pulse. He tried to pry it off the wood, but it burned his fingers. He hissed in pain and pulled back. The skin on his thumb was red, as if scorched. The maid stepped forward, kneeling beside him. Her glowing hand hovered above the tracker. Sparks danced around her fingertips. With a sharp crack, the device shattered into black dust. The blinking stopped. John exhaled, but relief didn't come. The maid shook her head. Too late. They already know. A sudden thud rattled the apartment door. Then another. Heavy, deliberate. John's heart pounded. He glanced at the maid, who stood tall now, her skin glowing brighter, her presence filling the room like fire. They are here, she said. The door burst open with a violent crash. Splinters flew across the floor. 3 figures stepped inside. They looked human at first glance, dressed in dark suits, tall, faces calm. But their movements were too sharp, too mechanical. Their eyes glowed faintly black like pools of ink. The one in front spoke in a voice too smooth, too cold. Human, step aside. She belongs to us, John froze. His whole body shook. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The maid stepped in front of him, her arms stretched out like a shield. No, she said firmly, her broken English sharp and clear. I choose my path. The leader tilted his head, almost amused. You disobey. You betray your kind. You know the punishment. Her glow brightened. The air grew hotter, trembling with energy. I know, she said. But I am free. The hunters moved forward, their black eyes fixed on her. John's breath caught in his throat. He whispered, we can't fight them. We can't. The maid glanced at him for a moment, her expression calm but fierce. Then lie again. Distract them. I need time. John's heart raced. Time? What could she do in time? He didn't know, but the hunters were only steps away now. Desperate, he shouted, stop! She's not here. You're making a mistake. The leader's head snapped toward him. Those black eyes pierced straight into John's soul. He felt exposed, weak, like they could peel his thoughts apart. But he forced his mind to stay firm, just like before. She's not here. She's not here. He repeated it in his head like a shield. For a moment, the hunters paused. Their heads tilted like they were listening to something unseen. The room went heavy with silence. Then behind them, the maid moved. Her hands rose, glowing bright red now. Strange symbols burned in the air around her, floating like fiery marks. The hunters turned back too late. A pulse of energy blasted through the room. The walls shook, the lights flickered, and John was thrown to the floor. The hunters staggered but did not fall. Their black eyes flared, their suits tearing slightly to reveal metallic skin underneath. Not men. Machines. Or something worse. John's voice broke. What are they? The maid didn't look at him. Her eyes blazed like molten silver. Enforcers, she said. Not alive, not dead. They only serve. The enforcers moved again, faster this time. One lunged at her, its hand turning into a sharp blade. She caught the strike with her glowing palm, sparks flying as metal met energy. The other two rushed forward, their arms stretching unnaturally, reaching for her. John scrambled back, his chest burning with fear. The fight was like nothing he had ever seen. Sparks, heat, the sound of metal grinding against energy. It was chaos. But the maid held her ground, pushing them back step by step. Still, John could see the strain on her face. Her heat was strong, but it was also burning her from within. She couldn't last forever. His eyes darted around the room, desperate. Then he saw it, the broken tracker's remains glowing faintly on the floor. Without thinking, he grabbed a shard. It burned his hand, but he held on. "Hey!" he shouted at the nearest enforcer. The machine turned toward him, black eyes narrowing. John hurled the shard with all his strength. It struck the enforcer's chest, sparking violently. The machine staggered, its movements glitching for a second. The maid seized the moment. She slammed her glowing hand into the enforcer's chest. With a burst of light, it collapsed, its body turning to ash. The other two hissed in unison, their black eyes burning hotter. John's heart pounded. He had just helped kill one of them. He wasn't ready for this. He wasn't a fighter. But in that moment, he realized something terrifying. Whether he liked it or not, he was part of this battle now. The maid turned to him, her voice strong despite the chaos. "Good, you fight." John shook his head, panic rising. "No, I just got lucky." But the enforcers didn't care. They lunged again, their bodies moving like shadows. The maid braced herself, energy pulsing from her glowing skin. John backed into the corner, clutching his burning hand, knowing this was only the beginning. The walls of the apartment shook as the deep, inhuman voice echoed outside. John pressed his back against the corner, his chest pounding so hard he thought it might burst. The maid stood tall in front of him, her glowing body casting long shadows across the room. The two remaining enforcers stalked closer, their black eyes burning like cold fire. "Move," the maid commanded, grabbing John's arm. Her touch burned, but he didn't resist. She pulled him toward the back of the apartment, away from the broken door where more shadows moved. "But where?" John stammered, panic choking his voice. "They'll kill us before we even get out." The maid's glowing eyes met his, fierce and unshaken. "We don't run. We escape." John didn't understand the difference, but he had no choice. He followed as she led him through the kitchen. Behind them, the enforcers advanced, their footsteps heavy, their bodies bending unnaturally as if they had no bones. The maid raised her hand, and the walls around the hallway began to ripple like liquid. Strange red symbols appeared, burning faintly in the air. She pressed her palm against the wall, and with a sharp crack, part of it collapsed, opening into a dark passage that shouldn't have been there. John gasped. "What is that?" "Away," she said. But not safe for long. She shoved him forward, and John stumbled into the passage. The air inside was different, thicker, buzzing with static, like walking into the heart of a storm. He turned back just in time to see one enforcer lunge. The maid spun, her glowing hand slicing through the air, striking the creature in the chest. Sparks flew, but it kept coming, relentless. "Go!" she shouted, her voice echoing unnaturally. John hesitated, torn between fear and instinct, but finally obeyed. He ran through the passage, his breath ragged. The walls pulsed faintly, alive somehow, guiding him forward. Behind him, he heard the clash of energy against metal, the hiss of enforcers, and the maid's sharp, inhuman cries. Then footsteps followed. Heavy. Unstoppable. John's heart sank. They were chasing him. He stumbled into a wider space that looked like the building's basement, though it was twisted. The pipes glowed faintly red. The concrete floor cracked with strange symbols. He had no idea where he was anymore. The maid appeared beside him suddenly, her skin glowing brighter than before, sweat dripping down her face. She grabbed his arm again and pulled him forward. "We must leave this place." "They call more," John's voice cracked. "Leave? Where? How?" She stopped for a moment, turning toward him with an intensity that froze his blood. "Do you trust me?" John blinked. I don't know." Her hand tightened on his arm. "You must. If you doubt, you die." Her words hit like a hammer. John nodded, though fear screamed inside him. She pressed her hand against the floor. A symbol flared to life beneath them, glowing brighter and brighter until John had to shield his eyes. The ground trembled, and suddenly a crack opened, revealing a tunnel leading deeper underground. Before they could descend, the enforcers appeared at the far end of the basement. Their black eyes glowed, their voices hissing in unison. "You cannot escape. She belongs to us." John's legs locked with terror, but the maid shoved him toward the tunnel. "Go!" she shouted. John slid down the steep passage, scraping his hands against the walls. Darkness swallowed him. He landed hard at the bottom, gasping. A second later, the maid dropped down beside him, her glow dimmed but her eyes still fierce. "They won't stop," John whispered, his voice trembling. They'll follow us forever. The maid leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling heavily. Yes, until one of us ends, her words chilled him. Ends, you mean? Either they die or you do. She nodded slowly. And you now. You are tied to me. John shook his head in disbelief. I didn't choose this. I just wanted a cleaner. Her gaze softened, almost sad. Sometimes choice is illusion. You are already marked. Before John could answer, a loud crash echoed from above. The enforcers were breaking through. The tunnel wall shook, dust raining down. The maid stood, pulling John to his feet. We must move! Farther! They stumbled through the tunnel, the air thick and suffocating. The hum returned, stronger now, pulsing through the ground. John's head throbbed with every step. At last they emerged into an abandoned subway station, dark and silent. Rusted rails stretched into shadows and broken lights flickered weakly. John bent over, gasping for breath. We're safe here? The maid shook her head. Not safe. Only hidden. For now? John collapsed onto a broken bench, wiping sweat from his face. His body ached, his mind spinning. He looked at her glowing figure, still burning faintly red in the dark. Why me? He asked again, his voice barely a whisper. Why my home? Why my life? She sat across from him, her glowing eyes locked on his. Because you called, she said softly. And because I need you. Not just to hide, but to fight. John's stomach dropped. Fight, he was no fighter. He was just an office worker, a man with a messy apartment. But before he could protest, the ground shook again. A metallic screech echoed through the tunnels. The maid stood, her glow flaring brighter. They are here. John rose slowly, his body trembling, his heart racing. He realized there was no turning back. The hunters would never stop. His only choice now was to stand beside her, or die alone. The subway station trembled as the shadows stretched along the broken tracks. One by one, tall figures emerged from the darkness. They were not like the enforcers John had seen before. These were bigger, stronger, their metallic skin sharper, their black eyes glowing like burning coals. Their movements were smooth but deadly, like predators who knew their prey had no escape. John's knees weakened. His chest heaved with shallow breaths. There's more of them, he whispered, his voice breaking. We can't fight all of that. The maid stood tall beside him, her glow burning brighter than ever. Her eyes flickered between silver and red, her heat reaching its peak. The air around her shimmered with energy, and her dark hair floated as if underwater. She looked both terrifying and beautiful, like a storm trapped in human shape. They will not stop, she said calmly. This is the end. Either them, or us. John shook his head, panic twisting his stomach. No, I'm not a fighter. I'm not like you. Her glowing eyes locked on his, fierce but steady. You already chose. The moment you opened your door. The moment you lied for me. You are part of this now. You are stronger than you know. Before John could answer, the enforcers charged. Their footsteps thundered through the station, echoing like war drums. The maid stepped forward, raising her glowing hands. A wave of energy burst from her body, slamming into the first two enforcers. Sparks flew and the floor cracked under the force. Run, she shouted at John, but John didn't run. He froze, torn between fear and the impossible urge to help. His eyes darted to the broken rails. Old wires hung loose, sparking faintly. An idea flickered in his mind. Mad, desperate, but the only chance. He sprinted toward the tracks, ignoring the fear screaming inside him. The maid's voice called out, but he didn't stop. He grabbed the wires, pain shooting through his hands as sparks burned his skin. He yanked hard, pulling the wires free, and turned toward the advancing enforcers. Hey! He shouted, his voice shaking but loud. The nearest enforcer turned its black eyes toward him, just as John slammed the sparking wires against the rail. Electricity shot forward, arcing across the metal. The shockwave hit the creature, its body twitching violently before collapsing to the ground, smoking. John gasped, his arms trembling, but he forced himself to stay standing. For the first time, he had struck back. The maid's silver-red eyes widened. Yes, she whispered. You fight, but there were still more. Two enforcers closed in on her, their arms turning into blades. She met them head-on, her glowing hands clashing with steel. Sparks exploded, the air filled with the sound of grinding metal and burning energy. John staggered back, looking for anything else he could use. His eyes landed on a rusted metal pipe lying nearby. He grabbed it, gripping it tight despite his shaking hands. The third enforcer lunged at him faster than he expected. John swung wildly, the pipe slamming against its head. The blow barely slowed it down, but it gave him just enough time to roll away as the creature's blade arm sliced through the bench where he had been standing. He scrambled up, panting, his whole body trembling. He wasn't strong. He wasn't trained. But survival pushed him forward. He swung again, this time striking the enforcer's leg. Sparks flew. The creature stumbled, and the maid finished it with a blazing strike to the chest. One by one, the enforcers fell, but each victory left John and the maid weaker. Her glow dimmed slightly, her breathing heavier, sweat dripping down her glowing skin. John's arms burned from exhaustion, his lungs screaming for air. But still, the last enforcer stood tall, its black eyes fixed on them. This one was different, bigger, stronger, its body covered in sharp armor. It stepped forward slowly, confidently. The maid's voice was low but steady. "This is their leader." The creature's voice echoed through the station, deep and cold. "You cannot escape. You belong to us. The human will die and you will return." John's blood froze. He knew this was the final moment. The maid stepped forward, but her glow faltered. She was too weak to finish this fight alone. The leader raised its blade arm, ready to strike. And then John moved. He stepped in front of the maid, pipe still clutched in his hands. His whole body shook, but his voice was firm. "No, she's not yours. Not anymore." The leader tilted its head, almost amused. "You think a weak human can stop us?" John tightened his grip, his heart pounding. "Maybe I'm weak. Maybe I'm nothing. But I'd rather die standing than let you take her." For a moment, silence filled the station. Then the maid's glow flared again, brighter than ever. Her voice trembled, but it carried strength. "This is why humans matter. They choose. Together, they struck." The maid's glowing hands clashed with the leader's blade, while John swung his pipe with every ounce of strength left in him. Sparks and fire filled the air, the sound of metal and energy exploding around them. With one final burst of light, the leader staggered. The maid drove her hand into its chest, energy blazing through its body. John struck its head, sparks flying. The creature let out a deafening scream before collapsing into ash. Silence followed. John dropped the pipe, his arms trembling, his body ready to collapse. The maid stood beside him, her glow fading slowly, her breathing heavy. She looked at him, eyes soft now, silver once more. "You fought," she whispered. "You chose. You are not weak." John managed a weak smile, though his body screamed with pain. "I just didn't want to die." She tilted her head, her lips almost curving into a smile. "That is why you live." For a long moment, they stood in silence in the broken subway station. The enforcers were gone, but the air still felt heavy. John knew this was not the end. The hunters would return. More would come. The maid looked up at the dark tunnel stretching ahead. "This world is not safe, but together, maybe we survive." John nodded slowly. He had no idea where this path would lead, but he knew one thing. His life was no longer ordinary. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as weak as he once believed.